Hello, and welcome to Unfiltered Eat Better, Think Better series. This is where we get real about our emotions, mindset, connection to food, and healing, and what it really takes to break free and feel good in your body and life again. I'm your host, Asim Shah, and in this series, I sit down with everyday people who face challenges with their health, body, their mind, their confidence, or long held beliefs that have held them back and found powerful ways to rise and grow through it all. These are real stories, no filters, no fluff, just raw conversations about what they struggled with, what actually helped, and how they created transformation from the inside out. So, whether you're on your own journey or you're just curious on what's possible, you are in the right place. Here's to eating better, thinking better, and living a phenomenal life. Let's go. So today we have a really special guest. I'm friends with his brother, but I've known him in school and recently sort of reconnected when I saw his story and journey on LinkedIn. And, depression is one of those words that we often hear, but rarely do we actually sit with the real stories behind it, what it actually feels like, how it affects not just the person living through it, but even everyone around them, and what healing can actually really look like for you. So today I'm sitting down with someone who's not only lived through it, but actually chose to write about it, speak about it, and now use his story to help others. Asim Shah is a coach. He's the author of Leading with Depression and is someone who knows firsthand what it means to be a high achiever, perhaps on the outside, while struggling deeply on the inside. His story is raw, it's real, it is full of lessons. I was lucky enough to have a coffee chat with him before this. And so I know that this will really resonate with anyone who's listening, who's ever felt like they had it all together or had to hold it all together, but quietly pieces were falling apart. So, Asim, thank you so much for being here with us. And really, yeah, I'd love to just start at the beginning if you can take us back to the moment when you first realized that something just wasn't right.
Uh, th- Thanks, Jamie. Thanks for having me here. And yeah, excited to have this conversation. Um, I think everything is 2020 in hindsight. But yeah, the the first time I realized something was really wrong was when I started having panic attacks. Um, and that the worst one was when I found myself waking up in the middle of the night in my sleep. And I felt like I was struggling to breathe. I felt like I was gonna die. Um, and then having calmed down, realized what it was is when I was like, okay, I'm in trouble. I need to go get some help.
Yeah. Did
Yeah,
something happen that day that made you have the worst panic attack, or do you feel it was just a build up over time?
it had been building up over time. I didn't know that that's what a panic attack was until it happened. And that's what I was saying, 2020 hindsight, like it had been going on for a while, not as intense, but it would happen during the day. I'd get like my heart rate would go up significantly. I'd have like a moments where I want to run, but I don't know where I want to run. And it doesn't make sense because I was at work, or you're just at home or around with family. So yeah, I mean, it's really something that until you realize what it is, you don't know what it is.
You don't know what it is. Yeah. And what was it like for you? I mean, if you can take us back there, because obviously you've come a long way from where you started, but what did it look like to others on the outside? You were there, you were showing up, you were doing the hard things, you were working, but what was going on then behind that image for you?
I think people saw me as a workaholic. So this is kind of before it happened, right? Um, yeah, workaholic, um, almost too caring about everything. Um, I was a perfectionist, so I was striving for perfection. Uh, I think, I mean, I don't think you'd have been able to tell that something was wrong from looking at me from the outside.
Yeah. And I think this is probably a really important point to maybe hash out a little bit? Because for someone who's listening, who's never experienced depression or may not even have come across anyone who may have been experiencing it, how would you describe what it felt like day to day?
That's a really good question. I think before realizing what was going on, I didn't sort of connect. Um, but having gone through the experience, having gone through therapy, etc., I think it was a lot of feeling of loneliness, um, not feeling supported, um, feeling ignored. So a lot of feelings around isolation. I think that would be sort of the summary of it. If I go into the details of it, then I can now again, I can think about okay, my dietary system or my diet was a mess. My gut was not in efficient digestion mode. Um, I I was exercising but not enjoying it. So also realizing that the joy of life had kind of just disappeared.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? It's once you sort of go through the healing process that you're able to reflect and see all the different pieces that may have not been working really well. You mentioned, like the gut and how the diet wasn't really great. And there's so much research now, isn't there, about how gut health affects our mental health. There's a huge, huge link. And so I love to hear that that was one of also the places that you started on in terms of your healing and recovering journey. So take us now through this process of actually you had this crazy panic attack, and that was the moment where you realized, wow, I need to get help. What did that look like, and how did you even start to look for help, or where did you look for help?
So yeah, I mean, I think I just woke up the next morning after having that panic attack, and I was like, okay, I need to get help. So I went to a psychologist, um, because I think we when you don't know the sort of the depth and the width of sort of what help is available, you go to what you know. And so I went to a psychologist and I said, this is what's happening. They did this index for me. So I think it's a depression and anxiety index, and you fill out it's like a survey, you fill it out. And when they kind of scored it, they were like, okay, this is off the chart. Like if in another country or another world, you would probably be sent to kind of get sedated in a hospital or something. So like, okay, I had no idea that it was that bad. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, and I think if I remember correctly, it was on a weekend. So the psychologist referred me to a psychiatrist and said, go see the psychiatrist on Monday and see what happens. Little did I know that they had decided to put me on medication. Um, so they put me on antidepressants and a short dose of anti-anxiety meds as well. Um, and it was like, here's the prescription. Come back in a couple of weeks. Um, and that was it. It was no explanation of what's going to happen. No no real kind of digging deep from the psychiatrist into what's triggered this.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I was put on medication, and me being the good patient decided, okay, let me follow what the doctor says and start taking the medication. And within a couple of days, I couldn't walk straight. I was in bed for 20 hours a day. Um, I would literally get up, go for therapy, and come back home and go to sleep. And that was my routine for a few weeks. Um, until somebody realized or somebody noticed that, I'm on meds, I'm in therapy, and nothing's changing. What, like, shouldn't I be getting better? And luckily, I was introduced to a naturopathic doctor who's also a psychotherapist. So I managed to get an appointment with him, and I think that was really the point at which, the bottom no longer existed. It was only the way up. And that approach was holistic in the sense we looked at the diet, we looked at not exercise because I couldn't exercise at the time, but we looked at movement, and we were trying to look at alternative um, modalities as well, meditation. But the first intention was get the diet right, find a way of getting off the medication so that we can actually access heart and mind to kind of treat what had happened.
Yeah, yeah. I think maybe looking back on that as well is that sometimes we're often so quick to just follow the doctor's orders, right? And that's natural because they're supposed to be our support system. They're supposed to be the ones who know everything. And don't get me wrong, psychologists, psychiatrists, they do a fantastic job. Medicines are needed to save lives. It's just a shame that we don't have that time or take the time to do that 5 minute even of conversation to ask, hey, Asim, how are you? What's going on in life? Right? Are you stressed? Are you sleeping well? What are your relationships like? What's connection like? And I'm really glad that somebody pointed out to you, hey, you're on meds and you're doing therapy. Why are you not getting better? Because it led you to now find someone that could meet you in a more wholesome way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. I think the medication, yeah, the medication has the right intention.
Yeah.
But I feel like in my case, it should have been a last resort.
Mhm. Yeah.
And in a lot of people I meet as well, the first thing I ask is, are you on medication or not? Because if you're not, then we have more hope of getting a natural way out of this. I was telling somebody that actually the side effects of the medication, and this is going back over 10 years ago. I feel like the side effects of the medication only wore off 2 years ago.
Wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's crazy. So it stays on for such a long time. How important a role do you feel the diet aspect or what you were putting in played in this overall recovery?
a huge amount. Because that, like you said, gut health is so influential over how you feel, um, you know, throughout your body, mentally as well. And so kind of it wasn't that I was putting the wrong stuff in. Um, it was more about healing the gut and then getting a balance of what I put in. So over the years, because it had been a chronic anxiety issue, the gut uh, had become less efficient. I guess the biome had been depleted. So
Yeah.
there was a lot around getting the probiotics, prebiotics, vitamins, minerals, healing the liver, flushing the kidneys, and really just allowing that part of the body to actually rest as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have an interesting question, and let me know if you want to answer it or not. It's totally fine. But so many people go through this journey in life and they hit rock bottom, but sometimes maybe they don't know they've hit rock bottom. And maybe they don't have the other thing that's just above that to help pull them through. But what was it for you that made you feel or want to actually just come back up to feeling good? Was there something in particular that pulled you? Was it a purpose? Was it a person? What was it for you that gave you light?
I I think it was a bunch of stuff. I knew that I was not ready to die. Um, I I think when I was in university, especially and sort of nearing graduation, I was super ambitious. I had a lot of stuff that I wanted to achieve. And so I was driven to say that this is not gonna stop me from achieving my dreams. So I feel like it was an inner, it was more inner than it was sort of external.
External, yeah. Are
Yeah.
you on the track or have you completed some of the dreams?
I think maybe in 50, it'll be 15 or 20 years delayed, but
But you're on track.
I think like like I said, like the side effects of the meds wore off a couple of years ago, and I feel like um this year especially things are moving in a direction where it feels like okay, everything might actually come together, and then the magic carpet is waiting for me to step onto it.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, we're all rooting for you and looking to see what you do. So I'm curious, how did the people around you respond at the time? Did you feel seen or did you feel misunderstood during that period?
Yeah, completely misunderstood. Completely. I mean, from from family to the psychiatrist, psychologist. I mean, it was it was it, nobody nobody was taking accountability or responsibility for what I was going through. I felt like I was being blamed for what I was going through, and by extension, I was being blamed for what everyone else was going through. And yeah, so that that's it's a really, let me say, sensitive and controversial um topic when you talk to anyone about depression, anxiety, mental health, because the triggers are always external, um, and how you respond, of course, is internal.
Yeah.
So how can the people around you change the environment or change something about the system that's around you that allows you to recover? And I think that was what everybody misunderstood. They missed the point that this is it's not something that I can kind of pop pills and get over a weekend. It was actually it was a long journey, and I don't think anybody realized how long the journey is gonna be and how long the journey was to get to that point as well.
Yeah, yeah, it's so true because I was attending another talk actually. I think it was the mental wellness expo at Sarit, and there was this conversation around, so often you see someone who's a bit down, you say, "Oh, look, just get over it. Go look at the sun, get up and get going," or, get over it quickly. And we really on the outside don't actually appreciate what that person may be going through internally or how they're feeling. And then, compounded with that, the person experiencing it may not actually be able to express it in that moment in time. And so there's a gap actually of communication between the two sides. What do you feel, what kind of support would have been most helpful for you at that time from those around you?
I I think judgment was probably the one that kept me stuck where I was, and the lack of judgment um, from the second therapist, the naturopathic doctor and psychotherapist. The lack of judgment from him uh, allowed me to express, in the most raw form what actually was going on. Because when the judgment is there, we we kind of reduce the intensity of what we want to say, or we make it politically correct, or we make it polite. We don't want to offend anybody.
Yeah.
And the more we do that, the worse we make it for ourselves because we're not allowing what's inside of us to come out.
Yeah. Wow. And that's probably one of the hardest things to practice is not applying judgment when on the receiving end of it. I mean,
It is, and I think the having been given the honor and privilege of not being judged when I needed to get out of where I was, changed my approach to kind of everything I see in life, and I bring that into my coaching as well. Arrive without judgment first, um, and ultimately, people want to be seen for who they are, without that judgment, and that's where the difference comes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that's such an important point, and it's something we can all practice so much more because then you do let someone just show up authentically and say what they need to say without a fear of how that person's going to react or judge them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
absolutely. And from hearing what you've said so far, the choice of therapist or the choice of who you work with made a really big difference, when you moved to the naturopathy doctor. Can you talk about maybe someone's listening, how can they figure out what's right for them?
It, I think so. It's again, it's not an overnight thing. None of these solutions have an overnight result. And I was trying as much as I was seeing, the psychotherapist and the naturopath. I was also experimenting with meditation, um, different forms of meditation as well. So, guided from like YouTube. I went to the Buddhist center a few times in Nairobi. Um, there was also yoga. Uh, that I think I was looking for something that made me feel a little bit of joy. It didn't have to kind of, push the meter too far, but it was just something that made me feel like, okay, this is actually grounding me or making me feel like there's hope. Um, it it came or finding that subtle movement was very much about self-awareness. And I feel like and they say this a lot, right? Accepting where you are is half the journey, because you become very aware of what's going on. So self-awareness and what are all these modalities or therapies doing for me, not just in my mind, but also in my body.
Yeah, yeah, it's huge actually. That piece of self-awareness and self-acceptance of what you're going through is like 50% of the battle right there when you can do that.
Yeah.
So it's beautiful as well to hear that, look, there's not only just one specific thing that can help you, but you've just got to find your rhythm and find that little thing that gives you a bit of joy and work with that and move with that and then build on that. What, how do you manage your mental health, physical health, or even spiritual health today? Are there daily practices that you do, or maybe seasons that you live in, or yeah, what does this look like for you today?
So the self-awareness is like a superpower, right? Um, every every day I'm kind of very conscious of how am I feeling today, who and what is affecting my energy. Am I going into a meeting or a conversation feeling inspired before I get there, or am I dreading it? And kind of being aware of that, because some meetings you have to show up regardless, right? So
Yeah.
uh, yeah, being aware of it beforehand. Very interesting. So, I mentioned that I couldn't exercise because I had something called adrenal fatigue as well at that time. So, with anxiety, my adrenal system had flatlined. Um, and I had to wait a long time for it to kind of pick up again. So I couldn't exercise. But I was able to get into the gym a couple of years ago. Um, so it's been almost 2 years since I got back into the gym. Managed to find, the right trainer who understood where I've come from. I think we both know who that trainer is.
Yeah.
Um, and having them understand that this body is different from somebody else's. This person's goals are X, Y, Z. Um, and and for me it was like, okay, if I am able to exercise consistently for a number of months, then I'll have, I that's progress for me. So um And now I go to the gym. I don't walk onto the floor with my phone, for example. That 1 hour or 1.5 hours is for me to focus on that goal of strength training or that goal of getting my heart rate up. Um, so 2 or 3 times a week, I disconnect from everything else and I focus on what I'm doing at the gym. I That's one example. I would love to have more. You know, for many people, it's reading. For a lot of people, it's actually watching TV or whatever it is. But those moments that allow you to completely disconnect from the reality of the world. I'll give you a funny example. When I was in therapy for all those years, I used to love watching cartoons. Uh,
Yeah.
and also like I forget what they're called, but like like uh medieval stuff where that it's not, or like Game of Thrones, for example, as gory as it was, you knew that it wasn't reality, so you had no relatability to it, and
Mm.
so it allowed you to disconnect. There's no trigger from it.
Yeah, because it's so out there that it's like that's definitely not reality.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Do you still do meditations in different ways?
I don't. And it's interesting. A lot of people ask me, and I'm like, yeah, I don't feel like meditation um, is that influential over something like journaling, for example. Um, there is one meditation that I love doing on and off. Vishen Lakiani's
Yeah.
the six step meditation. I think that one is the easiest to connect with.
Hmm.
So when I feel passionate about it, then I'll go to that.
Yeah,
But
yeah. It's so interesting. I
yeah.
actually love the six phase meditation and the different steps it kind of takes you through. It's a beautiful one. How do because self-awareness I find is a really, really important part of this whole journey and healing. And then it's a tool and a skill that's basically essential for life, in my view. So how can we cultivate more self-awareness?
Um, Ironically, meditation. Uh,
I wonder if I was setting you up for that.
um, so for me, I built up a lot of self-awareness through psychotherapy. Um, but if I connect back to, you get these guided self-scanning meditations
Mhm.
where you kind of focus on different parts of your body and kind of figure out is it feeling light, heavy, tight, whatever. Um, I feel like the practice of that kind of meditation allows you to become more and more in touch with who you are during the day as well, and so that's in terms of physical body awareness.
Mhm.
Um, the next one is then I think journaling helps with the realization of what thoughts you're having, perhaps what emotions you're having, and getting them out of your system. So you write it down, and then you kind of, when you look back, you realize, okay, this is, you look at the patterns, and you're like, this made me feel like this, or this thought keeps happening on a Monday or Sunday night, or whatever it is. So I think it's a little bit scientific and a little bit not. Um,
Yeah.
but the fundamentally to that, it's the ability to not judge yourself, uh, and so allowing those raw emotions and thoughts to just come up and being like, okay, that's what I feel, and it's allowed to.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love that. And the more you practice that, the more, like you said, just in your day-to-day life, you'll be able to just understand yourself a little bit better without that judgment. And I use this a lot of times in coaching when it comes to food as well. The more you have this self-awareness around one, let's say your body and the signal for hunger, is it really hunger or is it something else that we're needing in this moment, not actually food? Or when you're feeling tired, okay, are you actually physically tired or are you emotionally tired? And the more you can tap into this and practice this, you can actually serve yourself a lot better in your life, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
Thank you.
so you wrote a book, and I'm really fascinated about that because often, and I think maybe more so in our society and in the Indian culture and society, depression often comes with a lot of shame and it's not talked about and it's just, pushed to the side. How did you navigate telling your story to others and then eventually choosing to even write a book about it?
I I feel like I I I don't know why I felt like it was just so easy to talk about it. Um, and maybe it was kind of therapy as well, in the sense that I was just like I needed to speak to people, and I was like, hey, this is what's going on. It never occurred to me that it would come with the kind of judgment that it might have, and I never sort of allowed that judgment to knock me out from, aside from the judgment that was coming from sort of the nuclear family. Um, it never really affected me because, yeah, I was just so comfortable talking about uh, where I was at. Writing the book was a cathartic experience. It was a combination of journaling. It was quite a bit of it, and there's a lot of chapters that didn't make it into the book, but a lot of chapters were around um, explaining to very specific people, this is what happened, or this is how I was feeling. Um, and so it was a very therapeutic process as well. Um, and I had the title before I even started writing. So I always knew that I was going to write something around leading with depression.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think a, a big influence on it was Robin Sharma's book, Lead Without a Title. Um, I I read that very early on in my recovery journey and really resonated with the fact that I was trying to do stuff. I was trying to be a leader without wanting the labels that come with it. Um, and so yeah, and through my recovery journey, I ended up in all these sort of leadership roles. So I don't know. It's like the dots just connected by themselves. There was no intention around, or there was no plan around making it happen.
Yeah. It just
Yeah,
sort of happened. And you're right, you're writing that book in itself was also a form of journaling that you
yeah,
were writing everything out. And it's beautiful. And I really just do want to say thank you that you're here and you're sharing and you're talking about this because it's absolutely okay. It's absolutely normal. Every one of us goes through our own experiences that we go through with our emotions. And it's that whole aspect of non-judgment, right? Everyone has their own journey. Let's just be there and be kind and support them in whichever way that we can. So I really do want to say thank you again for being here and being able to talk openly about it. For for someone listening who feels like they might be in the place that you once were, but is afraid to ask for help, what would you say to someone like that?
um, the when you ask for help is when you cross that line where you have now accepted that you need help. The journey is something that we cannot do on our own. Um, that is bottom line. Like I tried it, it did not work. Uh, whether it's, everybody needs some kind of a crutch, whether it's medication, whether it's a therapist, whether it's a friend, a family member, or even faith. Like a lot of people use religion to help them out, right? Um, acceptance is that first point, and acceptance allows you to ask for help. The the struggle with asking for help is the judgment or the expectation of judgment.
Mhm.
Um, but are you gonna are you gonna sit there worrying about judgment and kind of losing yourself, or do you want to do something and kind of become aware that the past will be the past, and within some years people will have forgotten what it was? um,
Yeah.
Especially in this sort of day and age where we have the attention span of a goldfish. um, people will not remember, or the ones who do, you know, allow them to have their version of your story because that's what they want to have about you.
Yeah, I love that. Allow them to have their version of your story. And by no means does that mean that is your version of your story.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's super, super helpful. And what about for leaders or loved ones who are supporting someone with depression or know somebody who may be going through a challenge or a struggle? What's one thing you'd want them to know or do differently?
The, there's no right or wrong way of reaching out to help somebody, because this person just needs to be seen. First of all, they just want somebody to know that they're not okay. So even if you kind of say, I see that you're not okay, how do we get help together? I think reaching out is the first thing. It's not even how you do it. You just have to reach out. Um, of course, then the next thing is, when you do get some help, see if you can find a few options. Yeah, because like we discussed, right, there are so many different modalities or therapies available for different situations, and what you start with may just open up the surface for then the realization I actually need a specialist for something else. For example, um, where did the depression come from? It's from grief. So do we get a grief therapist involved? So I, it's really about opening up the conversation, and um, in that non-judgmental way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for that. As we come to the close and the wrap up, I just want to mention that I love that you are still in your leadership role in the sense that you are leading this company. And out of curiosity, do you feel that your leadership style may have changed having gone through this?
Yeah, absolutely. It's changed more because I need to manage myself than I need to kind of help other people navigate it. So it's emotional regulation, um, setting boundaries, because I know that, okay, if I do too much work, or if I get involved in a certain topic that's going to trigger me, um, then we're going to have a different situation. So then I'm very open about, with my staff. Like, for example, um, I I'm not a salesperson. I hate selling. Um, and so I always tell my team, do not put me in a situation where I have to sell without having any information. So asking for them to make sure that either they handle it or they prepare me enough for me to walk into that conversation knowing that I hate this, but I have to do it. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, yeah, it could completely change the way I approach things. Of course, I'm a little bit more open to sort of corporate wellness or mental health stuff that comes by. I am very specific about what I allow into the organization in terms of wellness support, because having gone through all the modalities, I know what worked for me, and having coached a lot of clients, when I first started coaching, I somehow just ended up with a lot of mental health related clients, and I realized that they were, medication was the first point of call. Um, Counseling or talk therapy was the next, and then religion was the third. And I was like, okay, all of that is helpful, but in context. So if you've lost a family member, for example, is talk therapy helping you? Again, back to self-awareness. Do you feel like it's helping you? Um, and being open about it. No, it's not helping me. Okay, let's look for something else. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, I'm a lot more open to uh, exploring exploring stuff. Let me just put it that way.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's one fascinating thing about this journey, that when anyone steps into a challenge and they start this idea of recovery or transformation, healing, whatever you want to call it, is that it just does allow us to be more open and curious as to what's out there and what's in this world, and what can maybe support me or make something more fun or better. And I love that you're also allowing that to be able to filter into the corporation and your employee wellness as well, because like, now that you feel so much better, you're probably way better at what you do. And on top of that, leading, a super duper amazing company in Kenya, and also having your time and energy to be able to coach as well. That happens because you're so well and you're taking care of yourself. And that's definitely something I want people to know as well, and to hear from that. Alrighty. So, Asim, thank you so much. Your honesty today really has been a powerful gift, and all the little nits and bits you've shared with us. And I know it's going to help so many people feel seen when they hear this. So, you've also shown us that depression, it's not a weakness, actually. It's just a part of the human experience. And with that right awareness, the self-awareness, the support and acceptance, it can also be your teacher and help you rise to a bigger role as well. So thank you so much. And before we close, I want to ask you the question that I ask every guest on this series, and that is, if healing had a voice, what would it say to you right now?
Feeling had a voice. What would it say to me right now? The word love comes up. Um, Love in all its form. Love energy, love yourself, love others. I think love is a really powerful uh, everything that gets us to move forward.
Oh, I absolutely love that. Yeah, thank you so much. And for everyone listening, thank you. And if this conversation resonated with you, helped you, or made you feel seen, please be sure to hit subscribe so that you never miss an episode. And feel free to come join our free Facebook community, Eat Better, Think Better. It's where these conversations continue and where you'll find real people walking the same path. So if you're ready to go deeper in your own journey, whether it's healing your relationship with food, shifting your mindset, or breaking free from beliefs that are holding you back, you will find more support, resources, and ways to work with me at www.eatbetterthinkbetter.com. So until next time, here's to eating better, thinking better, and living a phenomenal life. Let's go.